Okay, so let me tell you about the absolute worst night of my entire life. I mean, I've had some scary moments before, Like that time I thought someone was breaking in, but it was just the neighbor's cat knocking over trash cans, or when I watched that horror movie alone and couldn't sleep for 3 days. But this was something completely different. This was real. And it happened to me just last month, and honestly, I still can't sleep right because of it. So here's how it all went down. It was a Tuesday night. Well, technically Wednesday morning, I guess, and I'm talking like 4 in the morning. You know that time when it's so dark and quiet that even the streetlights outside seem like they're barely trying anymore? Yeah, that time. The time when normal people are deep asleep, dreaming about whatever normal people dream about. But me? I wasn't sleeping. I had been tossing and turning for like 2 hours at that point. See, I'd had this massive cup of coffee around 9 p.m. because I was trying to finish up some work stuff. And I know, who drinks coffee that late, right? Total rookie mistake. My wife Sarah had warned me. She'd literally looked at me with that, "You're going to regret this" face and said, "You're not going to be able to sleep." And of course I was like, nah, I'll be fine. Coffee doesn't really affect me that much anymore. Well, guess who was wrong? This guy. So, there I was, staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows from the tree outside our bedroom window doing their creepy little dance across the walls. Sarah was knocked out cold next to me, snoring softly. And I mean that in the cute way, not the annoying way. The kids were asleep too. We've got 2 of them, Emma, who's 7, and Jake, who just turned 5 last month. Their rooms are down the hall from ours, and usually they sleep like rocks. Both of them inherited that from Sarah, apparently, because I've always been kind of a light sleeper. Anyway, I'm lying there, counting sheep or whatever you're supposed to do when you can't sleep, and that's when I heard it. This noise. And it wasn't like a normal house settling noise, because I know those sounds. I've lived in this house for 6 years now, and you get familiar with all the little creaks and groans, the way the pipes clank when someone flushes a toilet, the way the floorboards in the hallway squeak in that one spot near Jake's room, the way the heating system kicks on with that whooshing sound. This was different. This was coming from downstairs, from the basement specifically, and it sounded like, I don't even know how to describe it properly. It was like a dragging sound, Like something heavy being pulled across the concrete floor down there. Just this slow, scraping noise that would go for a few seconds, then stop, then start again. At first, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe something fell over down there, right? We use the basement for storage mostly. Boxes of old clothes, holiday decorations, some of my tools, random stuff we don't need but can't seem to throw away. Maybe a box had tipped over and things were shifting around. That's totally possible, right? But then the sound came again, and it had this rhythm to it that made my stomach feel weird. Like it was deliberate, like something or someone was moving around down there on purpose. I glanced over at Sarah. Should I wake her up? No, that seemed silly. She needed her sleep. She had a big presentation at work in the morning, and I didn't want to freak her out over what was probably nothing. Plus, if I woke her up and it turned out to be nothing, I'd never hear the end of it. She'd be telling that story at parties for years. Remember that time you woke me up at 4 a.m. because you heard a noise and it was literally just the house settling? So I decided I'd just go check it out myself. Be the man of the house and all that, right? I mean, how hard could it be? Go downstairs, flip on the basement light, see that everything's fine, come back to bed, maybe finally fall asleep. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could. The hardwood floor was cold under my bare feet, which made me kind of wish I'd put on socks, but whatever. I was wearing just my boxer shorts and this old t-shirt from a concert Sarah and I went to like 10 years ago. Real intimidating, I know. I crept out into the hallway, moving slow, trying not to make any noise. The house was so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat thumping in my ears. I passed Emma's room first. Her door was cracked open like always because she doesn't like it being completely closed. I could see her little nightlight, the one shaped like a unicorn casting the soft purple glow.
She was curled up with like 15 stuffed animals. That kid's obsessed with stuffed animals. I stood there for just a second watching her sleep, and I remember thinking how peaceful she looked, how innocent. She had no idea her dad was about to go investigate some creepy noise in the basement like an idiot in a horror movie. Then I passed Jake's room. His door was closed, and I could hear his little white noise machine humming away in there. We got him that thing when he was a baby, and he still can't sleep without it. Creatures of habit, kids are. Sometimes I'd hear him wake up in the middle of the night and just start crying until we turned that machine back on. Then he'd be out like a light again within seconds. I made it to the stairs and started heading down. Our staircase goes down to the main floor, and then there's another set of stairs that leads to the basement. The house is a split level, which is pretty common in our neighborhood. It was built in the 80s, and it's got that classic suburban layout. Nothing fancy, but it's home, you know? The stairs to the main floor weren't too bad. A couple of them creaked, but nothing crazy. I made it down to the living room, which was dark except for the light from the microwave clock in the kitchen casting this faint green glow. I could see the outlines of our furniture, the couch where we spent most evenings watching TV, the coffee table that was covered in Emma's coloring books and Jake's toy cars, the TV mounted on the wall. Everything looked normal, quiet, still. I walked through the living room toward the kitchen, and that's where the basement door was. It's one of those doors that's kind of tucked away in the corner between the kitchen and the little laundry nook we've got. The door itself is old, like original to the house old. White paint that's yellowed a bit over the years with one of those crystal doorknobs that you don't really see anymore in newer houses. When I got to the basement door, I stopped. Just stood there with my hand on the doorknob, listening. The dragging sound had stopped. Everything was quiet again. See, I told myself, it was nothing, probably just something settling. Maybe we had a mouse or something and it knocked over a paint can. We should probably call an exterminator anyway, just to be safe. But something made me hesitate. Some instinct, you know? That little voice in the back of your head that's like, hey, maybe don't open that door. That primal thing that's kept humans alive for thousands of years, warning us when something's not right. I almost turned around right then, almost went back upstairs, crawled into bed, and decided I'd check it out in the morning when it was light outside and I wasn't running on zero sleep and too much caffeine. That would have been the smart thing to do. That's what the person in a horror movie should do, right? But they never do, and apparently neither did I. I stood there for what felt like forever, but was probably only like 30 seconds, just listening. My heart was beating faster now, and I could feel this weird tightness in my chest. Anxiety, probably. Or maybe just the caffeine finally catching up with me in a weird way. Then I heard it again, that dragging sound. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. Pause. It was definitely coming from the basement, and it was definitely not my imagination. Okay, I whispered to myself. Okay, you're gonna go down there, you're gonna see what it is, and it's gonna be something totally normal and explainable, and then you're gonna feel like an idiot for being scared. I turned the doorknob. It clicked softly in the silence, and that click seemed way louder than it should have been. I pulled the door open and it creaked on its hinges. We kept meaning to oil those hinges, but it was one of those things you never got around to, you know? The basement stairs stretched down into darkness. We don't have windows down there, it's completely underground. So when the light's off, it's literally pitch black. Can't see your hand in front of your face kind of darkness. The kind of darkness that feels almost solid, like you could reach out and touch it. There's a light switch right at the top of the stairs, and I reached for it, my hand fumbling along the wall until I found it. The switch plate was cold and a little sticky, probably needed to be cleaned, but again, one of those things you never think about until you're touching it at 4 a.m. I flipped it on. The fluorescent light buzzed to life, flickering for a second before stabilizing. That harsh white light spilled down the stairs, illuminating the concrete steps, the metal railing, and part of the basement floor at the bottom. The light made everything look kind of washed out and stark, throwing weird shadows everywhere. I couldn't see the whole basement from where I was standing. Our basement's kind of L-shaped, so you gotta actually go down there and turn the corner to see the whole thing. From the top of the stairs, I could see our washer and dryer against one wall, some shelving units with storage bins, and that creepy old furnace in the corner. Everything looked normal. Nothing knocked over, no signs of anything weird. See? I told myself again. I was doing that a lot, talking to myself. It made me feel less alone, I guess, less scared. See? Nothing. There's nothing down there. But I'd come this far, right? Might as well go all the way down and do a proper check. Otherwise, I'd just lie in bed wondering if I'd missed something, and then I definitely wouldn't sleep. So I started down the stairs, one step at a time, holding on to that cold metal railing. The stairs creaked under my weight, every single one of them, like they were announcing my presence to whatever might be down there. Step, creak, step, creak. I counted them as I went down. There's 13 steps total, which I've always thought was kind of an unlucky number, but whatever. Sarah says I'm superstitious. Maybe she's right. When I got to the bottom of the basement, I stood there on that cold concrete floor, and man, it was cold, like ice cold against my bare feet. And I looked around at what I could see. The temperature difference was crazy. Upstairs had been cool, but comfortable. Down here felt like a refrigerator. I could see my breath forming little clouds in front of my face. The washer and dryer were to my left, just sitting there like they always did. They were one of those matching sets, white with chrome handles, nothing fancy. There were a couple of laundry baskets on top of the dryer with clothes that Sarah had probably washed earlier that day and hadn't gotten around to folding yet. I could see some of Jake's little t-shirts with cartoon characters on them, Emma's school uniform stuff. She went to a private school that required uniforms, which we were paying way too much money for, but the school was supposed to be really good.
The shelving unit was straight ahead, one of those metal industrial-looking things from Home Depot. It was loaded with all kinds of junk. Clear plastic bins labeled in Sarah's neat handwriting, Christmas decorations, Halloween, old toys, Emma, baby clothes, Jake, baby clothes. We're hoarders, basically. Can't throw anything away because what if we need it someday, right? What if we have another kid and we need those baby clothes? What if we want to remember what the kids looked like when they were tiny? There were also some cardboard boxes that I knew were full of my old stuff from college. Textbooks I'd never look at again, some posters, random electronics that were probably obsolete by now. I kept telling myself I'd go through all that stuff and throw most of it away, but who has time for that? Between work and the kids and just life in general, there was always something more important to do. The furnace was in the far corner, this big metal beast that looked like something out of a horror movie, honestly. All these pipes coming out of it, going up into the ceiling, carrying heat throughout the house. It was rumbling away, minding its own business, doing its job. Nothing weird there. The pilot light was on. I could see that little blue flame through the small window on the front of it. I took a few more steps forward, my feet making soft padding sounds on the concrete. The floor was gritty, like it needed to be swept, and I could feel little bits of dirt and dust sticking to my feet. I made a mental note to sweep down here this weekend, add it to the list of things I'd probably never get around to doing. That's when I could see around the corner into the other part of the basement, the L-shaped part I mentioned. This section was bigger, maybe like 15 feet by 20 feet or something. We used it for even more storage because apparently we had too much crap. There was my workbench along one wall, where I'd do little projects sometimes, fixing things, building things, whatever needed doing. It was made of this heavy wood, scarred and stained from years of use. I'd actually bought it off some guy on Craigslist for like $50, and it was one of my favorite purchases ever. Above the workbench was a pegboard with all my tools hanging on it, hammers, screwdrivers, wrenches, handsaw, a level, all organized nice and neat. Well, mostly neat. Sometimes I forgot to put things back where they belonged, which drove Sarah crazy. She was one of those people who liked everything in its place. There were more boxes stacked in this section, a couple of old bikes that we were saving for when the kids got bigger,
Right now they had training wheels and were kid-sized, but eventually Emma would need a bigger bike and Jake would grow into Emma's old one and so on. That's how it works with kids, right? Everything gets handed down. An artificial Christmas tree was leaning against the wall in its box because, yeah, we use a fake tree. Don't judge me. It's easier and you don't have to vacuum up pine needles for 3 months. The box was beat up and taped in several places where it had split open over the years. We'd have that tree for probably 10 years at least. There was also this old couch that we'd kept when we bought new furniture for the living room a few years back. It was kind of ratty and stained. The kids had done a number on it with spilled juice and markers and who knows what else. But it was still comfortable, and I figured maybe one day we'd put it in a game room or something if we ever finished the basement properly. For now, it just sat there, covered with an old sheet to keep the dust off. And in the corner, the far corner where the light from the fluorescent bulb didn't quite reach as well, there were more boxes, more storage, more stuff we didn't need but couldn't throw away. Everything looked fine, normal, exactly how it should look. I stood there, scanning the room, listening. The furnace rumbled, the fluorescent light buzzed. I could hear the faint hum of the electrical box on the wall. We'd had some issues with it a couple years ago and had to get an electrician out to fix it. Cost us like $800, but it worked fine now. No dragging sounds, no scratching, no weird noises at all. See? I said out loud this time, not even whispering. Nothing. You're losing it, man. Too much coffee, not enough sleep. That's all this is.
I was about to turn around and head back upstairs when I noticed something. One of the boxes in the far corner had fallen over. It was one of those cardboard boxes, not one of the plastic bins, and it was lying on its side with some of its contents spilled out onto the floor. Old clothes, it looked like, maybe some books or papers. That must have been the noise I heard, a box falling over. Mystery solved, case closed, time to go back to bed and hopefully actually get some sleep before my alarm went off in like 3 hours. I walked over to the box, figuring I'd pick it up real quick and shove the stuff back in. Might as well, right? Otherwise, Sarah would come down here tomorrow and be annoyed that I'd left a mess. As I got closer, I could see that it was one of the boxes from my college days. There were some old textbooks spilled out. Introduction to Psychology, Calculus 2, English Literature, along with some notebooks and papers. I bent down to start picking stuff up, and that's when I felt it. This weird sensation, like someone was watching me. You know that feeling? When the hair on the back of your neck stands up and your body just knows something's not right, even though your brain hasn't caught up yet? I froze, crouched there next to the fallen box, and I slowly looked up. That's when I saw it. In the corner. The darkest corner of the basement, where the light barely reached. There was something there. A shape. A figure. At first, I thought maybe it was just a trick of the light, a shadow cast by one of the boxes or the bikes or something. Your eyes play tricks on you in the dark, right? You see shapes that aren't really there. Happens all the time. But this wasn't that. This was different. The figure was tall. Really tall, like maybe 6.5 feet, maybe even 7 feet, and it was just standing there, completely still, pressed into the corner like it was trying to blend in with the shadows. I couldn't make out any details. It was too dark over there, and the figure itself seemed to be made of shadow, like it was absorbing the light around it instead of reflecting it. But I could see the outline of a head, shoulders, a body, arms hanging at its sides, just standing there, not moving, not making a sound. My brain stuttered, like it couldn't process what I was seeing, because people don't just stand perfectly still in dark corners of basements at 4 a.m. That doesn't happen. That's not a thing. "Hello?" I said, and my voice came out weird, shaky, higher pitched than normal. "Is someone there?" No response. No movement. Maybe it was a coat rack or something. Had we put a coat rack down here? I couldn't remember.
My mind was racing, trying to find a rational explanation, because the alternative, that there was actually someone or something standing in my basement, was too scary to accept. "Sarah?" I called out, even though I knew it wasn't Sarah. Sarah was upstairs, asleep, and Sarah wasn't 7 feet tall. Still no response, still no movement. I stood up slowly, my legs feeling shaky beneath me. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run, to get out of there, to go back upstairs and lock the basement door and call the police. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, staring at this thing in the corner, trying to understand what I was looking at. And then it moved. Not much, just a little. The head tilted slightly, like it was looking at me, studying me. "Oh God," I whispered. And then, slowly, so slowly, it started to turn. The whole body began rotating toward me, this smooth, deliberate movement that was completely unnatural. No human moved like that. It was like watching a mannequin being rotated on a turntable, stiff and mechanical, but also somehow fluid. The head turned first, and even though I couldn't see a face, couldn't see eyes or a mouth or any features at all, I knew it was looking directly at me. I could feel it, this overwhelming sense of being seen, being observed, being analyzed. My body finally remembered how to move. The spell broke, the paralysis lifted. I turned and ran. I didn't think, didn't plan, didn't grab my phone to call 911 or grab a weapon to defend myself. I just ran toward the stairs, my feet slapping against the cold concrete floor. Behind me, I heard something, a sound like breathing, but not regular breathing. This rasping, rattling sound, like air being pulled through a broken pipe. I hit the stairs and started taking them 2 at a time, grabbing the railing to pull myself up faster. Behind me, I heard another sound, that dragging noise, the same one that had woken me up in the first place, but now it was faster, closer. "No, no, 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 no," I was saying, not even aware I was talking, just this stream of panicked words falling out of my mouth.
I reached the top of the stairs and burst through the doorway into the kitchen. I spun around and slammed the basement door shut, my hand shaking so bad I could barely turn the lock. There was a little button lock on the doorknob, and I pressed it in, hearing it click. Like that would do anything. Like a thin door and a cheap lock would stop whatever that thing was. I stood there, gasping for breath, staring at the door, waiting for something to happen, waiting for the doorknob to turn, waiting for that thing to come crashing through. But nothing happened. The door stayed closed. The house was silent again. My mind was reeling. What the hell had I just seen? Was it real? Had I actually seen something down there, or was I losing my mind? Maybe I was still asleep. Maybe this was all just a nightmare, and any second now I'd wake up in bed next to Sarah and realize none of this had happened. But I could feel my heart pounding, could feel the cold sweat on my skin, could feel the rough texture of the kitchen floor under my feet. This wasn't a dream. This was real. I had to get Sarah, had to get the kids, had to get us out of this house. I turned and ran through the living room, heading for the stairs to the second floor. I took them 3 at a time, moving faster than I'd ever moved in my life. When I reached the top, I ran straight to our bedroom. "Sarah," I was saying, loud enough to wake her, but trying not to totally scream and terrify the kids. "Sarah, wake up. We have to go." She stirred, rolling over and squinting at me in the darkness. "What? What's wrong? What time is it?" "We have to go," I repeated, already moving to the closet to grab some clothes. Any clothes. I pulled on a pair of jeans that were lying on the chair in the corner, not even caring if they were clean or dirty. "We have to get the kids and leave right now." "What are you talking about?" Sarah sat up, turning on the lamp on her nightside table. The sudden light made me squint, but I could see the confusion on her face.
a concern. "Are you okay? You look—" "There's someone in the basement," I said. And hearing myself say it out loud made it real, made it terrifying. "There's something in the basement, Sarah. I saw it. We have to get out of here." Her expression changed. The sleepy confusion was replaced by something sharper, alert. "What do you mean there's someone in the basement? Did you call the police?" "No, I just ran. I didn't think. I was pulling on shoes now, not even bothering with socks. "We need to get the kids and go. Now, right now." To her credit, Sarah didn't argue, didn't ask me a million questions. She just got out of bed, grabbed her robe, and started moving. That's one of the things I love about her. In a crisis, she doesn't freeze, she acts. "I'll get Emma," she said. "You get Jake." I nodded and ran out of the room, heading down the hall to Jake's room. My hands were shaking as I turned his doorknob and pushed the door open. The white noise machine was still humming away, and in the dim light filtering in from the hallway, I could see Jake's little form curled up under his blankets. "Jakey?" I said, moving to his bed and gently shaking his shoulder. "Jake, buddy, wake up. We're going on an adventure." Adventure was our code word when we needed the kids to do something without asking a bunch of questions. Like when we had to evacuate the house last year because there was a gas leak scare in the neighborhood. We'd told them we were going on an adventure, and they thought it was exciting rather than scary. Jake stirred, making that little grumbling sound kids make when you wake them up. "Daddy?" "Yeah, buddy, it's me. Come on, we gotta go." I scooped him up, blanket and all, holding him against my chest. He was getting big, 50 pounds at least, but adrenaline is a hell of a thing. He felt light as a feather. "Where are we going?" Jake mumbled, his head resting on my shoulder. "Somewhere fun," I lied. "You'll see." I carried him out into the hallway and saw Sarah coming out of Emma's room with our daughter in her arms. Emma was more awake than Jake, her eyes wide and confused. "Mommy says we're leaving. How come?" "We're gonna go stay somewhere else tonight," Sarah said, her voice calm and soothing, even though I could see the worry in her eyes. "Won't that be fun?" "But I have school tomorrow," Emma protested. "We'll figure it out, sweetie," Sarah said. "Right now, we just need to go, okay?" We headed for the stairs. Me in front, Sarah behind me with Emma. I was hyper aware of every sound in the house, every creak, every groan. Was that thing still in the basement? Or had it found a way out? Was it somewhere else in the house now, watching us, waiting? We made it down the stairs to the main floor. The living room was dark and empty. Everything looked normal, but I didn't trust it. Didn't trust that we were safe. "Keys," Sarah said. "Where are the keys?"
"Kitchen counter," I said. "I think." We moved toward the kitchen, and I realized we'd have to walk right past the basement door. The door I'd locked. The door that was hopefully still locked. As we got closer, I could see it. The white door with the yellowed paint and the crystal doorknob. It was still closed. Still locked. Nothing had come through. But then I heard it. From behind the door. From down in the basement. That dragging sound again. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. Pause. And then something else. A sound I can't even properly describe. It was like whispers, but not words. Just this sibilant hissing sound, rising and falling like dozens of voices all talking at once, but too quiet to make out what they were saying. Sarah heard it too. I could see her face go pale, see her grip on Emma tighten. "Go," I whispered. "Get to the car. I'll grab the keys." "I'm not leaving you," she whispered back. "Sarah, please. I'm not leaving you." We moved together quickly past the basement door. I didn't look at it. Didn't want to see if the doorknob was turning. Didn't want to know if that thing was on the other side, trying to get out. We made it to the kitchen counter and I grabbed the keys.
Thank God they were right where I thought they'd be. Sarah's purse was hanging on a hook by the back door, and she grabbed that too. Then we were moving again, heading for the front door this time instead of the back, because the front door felt safer somehow, farther from the basement. I fumbled with the deadbolt, my shaking hands making it hard to get a grip. Come on, come on, come on. Finally, it clicked, and the door swung open. Cold night air rushed in, and it felt amazing. Fresh, safe. We ran out into the yard, across the grass that was wet with dew, toward where our car was parked in the driveway. It was one of those minivans that every suburban family has, silver and practical and boring. Right then, it looked like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I yanked open the back door and put Jake in his car seat, not even bothering to buckle him properly. Just get in the car. Just get safe. Sarah was doing the same with Em on the other side. Then we were in the front seats, and I was jamming the key into the ignition. Yeah, our car was old enough that it still had an actual key. And turning it. The engine roared to life, and I've never been so happy to hear that sound. I threw it in reverse and backed out of the driveway way too fast, barely looking to see if anyone was coming. At 4:30 in the morning, in our quiet suburban neighborhood, there wasn't anyone. But I wasn't thinking clearly. I just wanted to get away from that house. As we pulled away, I looked back at our house, at the home we'd lived in for 6 years, the place where we'd brought both our babies home from the hospital, the place where we'd celebrated birthdays and Christmases and anniversaries. It looked so normal, so innocent, just a regular house on a regular street. But I knew what was inside. I knew what was waiting in that basement, and I knew we couldn't go back. You said there was someone in the house? I said there was something. Sarah, I don't know what I saw. It didn't look human. She stared at me for a long moment. What does that mean? I mean, it looked shaped like a person, but it didn't move like a person. And it was just wrong. Everything about it was wrong. So what are you saying? That there's a ghost in our house? A monster? I don't know what it was. I just know we couldn't stay there. The food arrived before Sarah could respond, the waitress setting down plates of pancakes and bacon and eggs. The smell should have been appetizing, but it just made my stomach turn.
The kids ate happily enough, drowning their pancakes in syrup the way kids do. Sarah picked at her food. I didn't even try. I just sat there, drinking coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, trying to figure out what the hell we were going to do. Maybe we imagined it, Sarah said quietly after a while. Maybe you heard something weird and your mind played tricks on you in the dark. Maybe if we went back now in the daylight. It wasn't my imagination, I said firmly. I know what I saw. Okay, so then we call the police. Tell them someone broke into our house. They'll go check it out. I thought about that. What would the police find? Would that thing still be there? Would they even be able to see it? Or would they search the whole house, find nothing, and file a report saying I was either lying or having some kind of mental health crisis? But what was the alternative? We couldn't just never go back. Like I said, everything we owned was in that house. All right, I finally said. We'll call them. I pulled out my phone. Thankfully, I'd had it in my pocket when I ran out of the house and looked up the non-emergency number for the local police. It was around 5:30 in the morning now, the sky outside starting to lighten up with that pre-dawn glow. A bored-sounding dispatcher answered on the third ring. Police department non-emergency line? Hi, I need to report a possible break-in at my house, I said, trying to sound calm and rational. What's your address, sir? I gave her our address, and she asked a bunch of questions. When did I notice the intruder? Did I see how they got in? Were they still there? Had anything been taken? I answered as best I could, leaving out the parts about shadows and unnatural movements and dragging sounds. Just stuck to the basics. I heard noises from the basement around 4 a.m., went to investigate, saw someone down there, grabbed my family and left. And you're certain there was an intruder?
the dispatcher asked. Yes, I saw them. Can you describe them? It was dark, tall. That's all I could really see. Male or female? I don't know. Okay, sir, we're sending a unit to your address now to check it out. Are you somewhere safe? Yeah, we're at a diner across town. Good. Stay there, an officer will call you once they've secured the premises. I thanked her and hung up. Sarah was watching me expectantly. They're sending someone to check it out, I said. And then what? I guess we wait. So we waited. We sat in that diner booth while the sun came up, trending the sky from black to purple to pink to blue. The morning rush started trickling in. People getting coffee before work, construction crews grabbing breakfast, early risers getting their day started. We must have looked ridiculous, this family in their pajamas, sitting in a booth for 2 hours, nursing cups of coffee and watching the door like we were waiting for something terrible to happen. My phone finally rang at 7:15. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Mr. David Richardson? Yes, that's me. This is Officer Martinez with the local police department. I'm calling about the possible break-in you reported at your residence. Right. Yes. Did you find anything? We've done a thorough search of the property, sir. We checked all the doors and windows. There's no sign of forced entry. We searched every room, including the basement. There's nobody in the house. I felt something twist in my gut. Relief? Or something else? You searched the whole basement? Yes, sir. Every corner. There's nobody there. Nothing seems to be disturbed or stolen. All the doors were locked from the inside when we arrived, so it suggests that if there was an intruder, they're long gone now. But I saw something, I insisted. In the corner of the basement, there was something, standing there. There was a pause. Mr. Richardson, is it possible you might have seen shadows or maybe a pile of belongings that looked like a person in the dark? It happens more often than you'd think. No, it moved. It turned and looked at me. Another pause, longer this time. Sir, have you been drinking tonight or taken any medication that might affect your perception? And there it was. They thought I was crazy, or drunk, or high. No, I said, fighting to keep my voice level. I'm completely sober. I know what I saw. Well, the house is clear now. It's safe for you to return. We can have an officer stay nearby for a while if that would make you feel more comfortable. Yeah, I said slowly. Yeah, okay, thanks. I hung up and looked at Sarah. They didn't find anything, said the house is clear. So it's safe? That's what they say. But you don't believe them. I didn't answer, because the truth was, I didn't know what to believe anymore. Had I really seen something down there? Or had my sleep-deprived, over-caffeinated brain conjured up something that wasn't real? The kids need to get ready for school, Sarah said, glancing at her watch. And we need to get changed for work. We have to go back, David. She was right. We couldn't just live in this diner forever. We had jobs, responsibilities. Emma had school. Life had to go on. Okay, I said. Okay, we'll go back. But I was terrified. The drive back to our house felt longer than the drive away, even though it was the same distance. Every street we turned down, every block we passed, I was thinking about what might be waiting for us. Maybe the police had scared it away. Maybe it was gone now. Maybe, hopefully, it had never been real in the first place. Our house looked so normal in the morning light. The sun was fully up now, shining on our neat lawn and white siding and blue shutters. There was a police cruiser parked on the street, and as we pulled into the driveway, I saw an officer sitting inside it, presumably the one who was supposed to stay nearby to make us feel safe. We all got out of the car. The officer got out too, a young guy who looked like he was maybe 25, with a crew cut and a name tag that said Chen. Mr. Richardson? Yeah, that's me. Officer Chen, I'm going to hang around for a bit, make sure everything's okay, but like my partner said, we did a complete search. House is empty. Thanks, I said. because what else could I say? Sarah had already taken the kids inside. I followed, my heart pounding with every step. The front door was unlocked. The police had been inside after all. And I pushed it open slowly. Everything looked normal, exactly how we'd left it just a few hours ago. The living room with its comfortable clutter, the kitchen with dishes still in the sink from last night's dinner, the basement door, closed and innocent looking. "I'm going to get the kids ready for school," Sarah said. "Can you check the basement, just to make sure?" She saw the look on my face. "Please, I need to know it's okay." I nodded, even though the last thing I wanted to do was go back down there. But she was right. If we were going to live in this house, we needed to know it was safe. I walked to the basement door, put my hand on the doorknob. It felt cold, but that was probably just my imagination. I turned it and pulled the door open. The stairs led down into darkness. The police had turned off the light when they left. I flipped the switch. The fluorescent bulb flickered on, buzzing its familiar buzz. Everything looked normal, just like it had when I'd first come down here last night. The washer and dryer, the shelves with their storage bins, the furnace rumbling away in the corner. I made myself go down the stairs, made myself walk into that L-shaped section where I'd seen, whatever I'd seen. The fallen box was still there, my old college stuff spilled out on the floor. That was real, at least. That had actually happened. But the corner where the figure had been standing? Empty. Just concrete wall and shadows. Nothing unusual.
I stood there for a long moment, staring at that corner. Had I really seen something? It had felt so real, so terrifying. But looking at it now, in the daylight streaming in through the tiny basement windows near the ceiling, it was hard to imagine anything scary about it. Maybe the officer was right. Maybe it had just been shadows and sleeplessness and an overactive imagination. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw it. On the concrete floor, near where that figure had been standing, there were marks. Drag marks. Long, dark streaks in the dust and grit, like something heavy had been pulled across the floor. They led from the corner to the middle of the room, and then they just stopped, like whatever made them had simply vanished. I felt ice flood my veins. My mouth went dry. Those marks hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. The police hadn't mentioned them, which meant either they'd appeared after the police left, or what? What was I thinking? That some invisible entity was still down here, leaving traces that only appeared when no one was looking? I needed to get out of this basement, needed to get back upstairs where there was light and space and other people. I practically ran up the stairs, my legs shaking. When I got to the top, I slammed the door behind me and locked it, even though logically I knew a lock wouldn't stop whatever it was. Sarah was in the kitchen making the kids' lunches for school, trying to establish some normalcy, I guess. "Everything okay?" she asked, though she could probably tell from my face that it wasn't. "There are marks," I said quietly. "Drag marks on the floor, in the corner where I saw it." She stopped what she was doing. "The police didn't mention any marks." "I know. So they appeared after the police left? I guess. I don't know." We stared at each other, and I could see she was just as scared as I was now. This wasn't just my imagination. There was physical evidence. Something had been down there. Something might still be down there. "What do we do?" she whispered. I didn't have an answer. The rest of that day passed in a weird, surreal blur. Sarah called in sick to work. I did too. We couldn't just act like everything was normal when we both knew something was seriously wrong with our house. We got the kids off to school.
No point in disrupting their lives if we didn't have to. And then Sarah and I just sat at the kitchen table, drinking coffee and staring at that basement door. "We need to tell someone," Sarah said eventually. "A priest or something. Someone who deals with this kind of thing." "You mean like an exorcist?" I asked, and it sounded ridiculous saying it out loud. "You think our house is haunted?" "I think something weird is happening, and we're not equipped to handle it ourselves." She had a point. We were just regular people, suburban parents with regular jobs and regular problems. We didn't know anything about ghosts or demons or whatever this was. Sarah got on her laptop and started searching. "Paranormal investigators," she read aloud. "Ghost hunters. Spiritual cleansing services. Oh God, there are so many of these." "Most of them are probably scams," I said. "But maybe not all of them." She clicked through several websites, reading reviews and testimonials. Some of them sounded legit. Others sounded like total nonsense. It was hard to tell which was which. "Here," she finally said, turning the laptop toward me. "This group seems legitimate. They're based about an hour away. They do investigations for free. They just ask that they can document it for research purposes." I read through their website. It was professionally done with case studies and equipment descriptions and bios of the team members. They called themselves the Metro Area Paranormal Research Society, or MAPS for short. "Should we call them?" Sarah asked. I thought about it. Part of me was embarrassed. Calling ghost hunters? Really? What would our friends think? Our families? But another part of me, that part that had seen that thing in the basement, that had heard those sounds, that knew about those drag marks, that part was desperate for help from anyone who might know what to do. "Yeah," I said. "Call them."
Sarah made the call while I sat there, listening to her explain our situation to whoever was on the other end. She was trying to sound rational and calm, but I could hear the fear creeping into her voice when she described what I'd seen. After about 10 minutes, she hung up. "They can come tonight," she said, "around 9 p.m. after the kids are asleep. They want to do an investigation, set up some equipment, see if they can document anything unusual." "Okay," I said. "Okay, that's good." But I was already dreading it, dreading spending another night in this house, dreading what they might find, or what they might not find. "Maybe we should take the kids to your sister's," I suggested, "just for tonight. We can tell them it's a sleepover or something." Sarah nodded. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll call her." So that's what we did. Sarah called her sister Rachel, who lived about 30 minutes away, and asked if the kids could spend the night. Rachel was confused, but agreed. She loved Emma and Jake and jumped at any chance to spend time with them. We picked the kids up from school that afternoon and drove them over to Rachel's house, spinning some story about how Mommy and Daddy needed to do some work on the house and it would be easier without them there. The kids bought it. They were excited about a surprise sleepover with their aunt. By the time we got back home, it was starting to get dark again. That same creeping darkness that had been there last night when everything went wrong. I found myself watching the basement door, half expecting it to burst open and something to come crawling out. The MAPS team arrived right at 9 p.m. There were 3 of them. A woman in her 40s named Dr. Patricia Reynolds, who seemed to be the leader, a younger guy named Marcus, who handled all the technical equipment, and another woman named Jen, who said she was sensitive to paranormal activity. They were all surprisingly normal looking. No weird robes or mystical jewelry. Just regular people in jeans and t-shirts carrying cases of equipment. "Thanks for having us," Dr. Reynolds said as we let them in. "I know this must be a difficult time for you. Why don't you walk us through exactly what happened?" So we did. I told them everything. The noises in the night, going down to investigate, seeing the figure in the corner, the way it had moved, our panicked escape. Sarah told them about calling the police, about the search that found nothing.
I told them about the drag marks I'd seen that morning. Dr. Reynolds listened to all of it, taking notes on a tablet. She didn't look skeptical or like she thought we were crazy. She just listened and nodded and asked clarifying questions. Has anything else unusual happened in this house before last night? Sarah and I looked at each other. Not really, Sarah said. I mean, sometimes I feel like someone's watching me, but I always figured that was just my imagination. I've had weird dreams, I admitted. The last few months especially. Dark dreams, where I'm being followed by something I can't see. How long have you lived here? Marcus asked. 6 years, I said. And nothing like this happened before? No, nothing. Interesting, Dr. Reynolds murmured, making another note. Sometimes a triggering event can awaken dormant energy, or sometimes an entity can be attracted to a location by changes in the environment or the emotional state of the occupants. Have there been any major life changes recently? Stress? Conflict? I thought about it. Work had been stressful lately. Sarah and I had been arguing more than usual. Nothing serious, just the normal wear and tear of marriage and parenting. Money had been tight. Emma was having some trouble at school with a bully. Jake had been having nightmares. Normal life stress, nothing that seemed like it would summon a shadow monster. Nothing out of the ordinary, Sarah said. All right, well, let's see what we can find. Marcus, let's start setting up. For the next hour, they transformed our house into something out of a sci-fi movie. Cameras were set up in every room, including the basement. EMF detectors, which apparently measured electromagnetic fields and could detect paranormal activity, or so they claimed, were placed strategically throughout the house. They set up audio recorders, motion sensors, and a bunch of other equipment I didn't understand. Jen walked through each room slowly, her eyes closed, her hands held out in front of her like she was feeling for something invisible. There's definitely something here, she said when she got to the basement door. Heavy energy. Old energy. Old like how old, I asked? Hard to say, but it's been here a while. Maybe not in this house specifically, but in this area, this land. Dr. Reynolds pulled out her own tablet and started looking something up. Let me check the property records, she muttered. We waited while she scrolled through whatever she was reading. Okay, so this house was built in 1983, she said. Before that, this land was undeveloped, part of a larger tract that was farmland in the early 1900s. Before that, she scrolled some more. Before that, it's unclear. Could have been wilderness. Could have been Native American territory. So you're saying this thing has been here for 100 years? Sarah asked, her voice shaking. I'm saying it's possible. Sometimes entities are tied to specific locations rather than specific buildings. The house being built here might have disturbed something that was dormant. Or, Marcus added, it could be something completely unrelated that was attracted here recently. We won't know until we gather more data. They decided to do what they called an overnight observation. Basically, they'd monitor all their equipment through the night and see if anything happened. They invited us to stay and watch with them, but honestly, I didn't want to be there. Didn't want to see that thing again if it decided to show up. We're going to go to a hotel, I said, but we'll keep our phones on. Call us if you find anything. Absolutely, Dr. Reynolds said. And don't worry, if there is something here, we'll figure out what it is and how to deal with it. I wished I had her confidence. Sarah and I drove to a hotel near the highway, one of those generic chain places where the rooms all look exactly the same. We checked in, went up to our room, and just sat on the edge of the bed, holding hands, waiting for our phones to ring. It was the longest night of my life, even longer than the night before, if that was possible. We didn't sleep, just sat there watching the minutes tick by on the digital clock by the bed. Around 3 a.m., my phone finally rang. Dr. Reynolds.
"We've got something," she said, and I could hear excitement in her voice. "Can you come back? You need to see this."
Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.